Alright, let's make some sprites. So we're going to delete the default cube and add a plane. And then this plane, I'm going to subdivide once. And then grab all the edges and do Alt-Shift-S. That's to sphere. So now it's rounded. Add subdivision surface. Apply, same thing. Grab all the edges, Alt-Shift-S, 1. So that's as smooth as we can get it. Without going really, really high in polygons, but we can because we're going to bake this, so that's nice and really smooth. Alright, so we're going to scale this down, do a new material, and set it to halo. Now you can see it broke down into dots. We're going to set the alpha to 0.05, and then I'm going to grab the camera and turn its rotation to 0, 0, 0, and then selection to cursor, grab on Z-axis, view camera, and there's our sprite. So now we're going to set up the camera so that it is good for sprites. We want the camera size to be something that's like 1 frame of a UV animation. So we're going to go ahead and go with 128 by 128. And then I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to set the orthographic scale to 5. So this explosion is going to start small. We're going to render it, see how it looks. So that's the first frame there. And we can move this to another layer. I duplicated it and moved a copy. So now we have frame 1 on another layer if we need it again. I just did extrude individual and then individual origins. Oops, that didn't work. So you can pull faces out sideways like this, but you apparently can't with edges. So to fix that, we just grab the face select tool, grab the whole fan there, remove this layer and this layer with right click, Control Alt Shift right click so that you keep your selection. Sometimes if you have a bunch of faces you need to remove, you can use the C tool, which brings up the circle, and then middle mouse, and middle mouse will unselect things. So now that we have that done, I can do Control E, edge split. So there we go. So now I need to select all these points in the fan, and then scale them. So now when we go to the view and render, we have this little star thing, but those aren't exaggerated enough to actually be able to see. So what we actually have to do, we're going to have to start render frame 1 again, but the size is too great. We're going to crank the size down to 0.1 and see how that looks. It might be my resolution too. I'm going to go ahead and bump that up to 256 per frame. And see how that looks. Much the same. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. So now we have like a radiating explosion looking effect. And you could go in with colors and all sorts of things to make this more explosion-like by having more than one object. Like for instance, right now if I hit P, selection, I just grabbed all these vertices off the end. And I could change the material by clicking here and say that these are red. Then we render, now we have this little faint red outline on the tip. So you can do that with all the vertices and change whatever colors you want. And then now for actually saving the things. So after you render them out, you can save them as an image, and then you can use another program to stitch the images together. Or there's an add-on by Fweeb, Jason Van Gumster, I think, that is a sprite sheet generator. So when you render an animation sequence, it'll render it to UVs. And it's a little tricky to get set up because you have to install ImageMagick and dependencies and stuff like that. But it works really good. I don't have it installed currently, and I might do another tutorial about that. But basically, by adjusting what's in front of the camera per frame, and then rendering each still, and then building the stills into a sheet, you can make a animation. And to kind of give a demonstration of that, we'll go ahead and I'm going to move frame 2 to layer 2, and then move frame 1 to layer 1, and we're going to render this. And we have to change the background settings on the shading to transparency, and then render that. So now we have a sprite. We'll do image, save as image, 00000 sprite frame 1. And then this way it makes it pretty easy to find because it's right at the beginning. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and render frame 2. And since these are sprites, they don't have any shading, so you don't need to worry about moving lightings or moving cameras. You can just render each layer separately, which is kind of nice. Image, save as image, sprite frame 2. And then I could take this and scale it up a little bit and add a simple. And then this one I'm going to hit smooth once or twice. And then use the circle tool and add some more detail. So the more vertices you have on the outside, the denser the area is going to be on the outside there. Alright, so that looks like an explosion, pretty good. And then we're going to do save as image, frame 3. Alright, and then we need one more. So I'm just going to take these and expand them a little bit. And then this one. There we go. Alright, so now we've made these, and we're not going to stitch them together in this one. I'm just going to go ahead and use the game engine to demonstrate what it's going to look like. I'm going to add a plane, and then unwrap it using UV unwrap. Unwrap. So now it should fill the whole area of the UV editor, and it does. We're going to give it a new material, and then do new texture, open. Then I'm going to grab the first frame, and then turn this to texture. And then to be able to see this, we have to switch the viewport over to GLSL, which you can do up here in the tool shelf by switching this to GLSL, or you can do it here in the down here. So now we need to use this for alpha, and we're going to set this to shadeless. And then you can see the dot there. So there's the explosion starting, but this black box around it, you don't want that. So we set transparency to 0, specular to 0, and now the alpha map makes it so that just this part's visible. So I'm going to duplicate this and grab it and move it over on the x-axis, and then make it so it has a single material, since we don't have a UV sheet to use, and a single texture. So now it's using a unique texture. And we'll load up that other frame. So now we need frame 2. So here's frame 1, frame 2. And I got to repeat the same process again and make, oops, frame 3. So material, single, texture, single, open, frame 3. So frame 1, 2, 3. And then single material, single texture. This isn't really that efficient. It's much more efficient to use a Sprite UV sheet so that you can use one material for all of these by using the UV offset. But for our purposes, for demonstrating this, it's good enough. Alright, so now we have all of the frames of the explosion. And this one, I'm going to attach a light to. I'm going to parent it to this. And then I'm going to move this to another layer. And then add an empty. Set up some logic. Spacebar, edit object. And then I'm going to bring up this other layer and use the picker. And then now I picked that, so it's going to add that. And I'm going to use tap. So we're going to go to the first layer, and now when I hit P and space, it adds the dot. So now we're going to have to set up some logic. Delay, 1 frame, edit object, add object, the next frame, and here, set the time to 1. We'll see what happens. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this and copy the logic. Oh, I did that backwards. Huh, that's weird. My logic bricks are gone out of this one. Oh well. Delay, 1 frame, edit, add object, this guy, connect that across, grab this, add this guy instead, grab this, add this guy instead, and set it to 1. So now we should see an explosion when I hit space. Pew! Oh. Alright. I wonder where that last one's coming from that's not going away. It looks like it has to be this one. Here, we'll just ensure that this all works correctly by doing end object. Alright, let's see what happens. When we hit space, we should see an explosion. Alright, there we go. Pew, pew, pew. We made some pew pew. This is what it looks like from the camera's view. It's not the best explosion ever, but we made it in like 5 minutes.